Svetlana Salnikova, who is, I guess I need to change the page. Svetlana is a PhD student at the High School of Economics. We have this a big sort of expedition from our school of a PhD School of Art and Design, High School of Economics. Svetlana is a PhD student, but she's also a fashion designer and the founder of the fashion brand Fur. In her research, Svetlana looks at how local cultural codes of Europe and North of Russia can be investigated through daily wardrobe practices of the Armenian city residents. And the talk Svetlana is about to give is devoted to slightly different matter, which is very relevant to our conversations in the frame of this conference: identity in a suitcase, the experience of packing to live in a different culture as a construction of a new identity.
Hello everyone. Do you hear me well? It's okay with the microphone? Is it okay now?
Well, you speak Italian.
So, first of all, I want to thank Mila and you, the Observer Function House, for organizing this conference, and all of you to come. For me, it's the first conference outside the High School of Armenia University, and it is really inspiring for me that this is an event like this, and I can hear all your inspiring reports. And in my research, in my main research, I'm working on a connection between cultural identity and wardrobe practices in the region of European nationality. So when I saw the topic of the conference, I started to think about how moving to other countries can affect our identity represented through clothes. So I will talk about migration process from Russia to other countries in 2022, wardrobe choices that participants on my research made while packing, and how these clothes are working after vacation. This topic often appeared during conversations with my friends, most of whom immigrated in recent 12 months. I also have my experience of packing, my own experience of packing on the trip with no return tickets. So it was interesting to compare my thoughts and anxieties with the anxieties of others and look for some intersections. It is important to know that this study is only the beginning of large research and it's too early to draw conclusions. I will try to outline patterns that may be useful for further investigation into clothing choices Russian immigrants of the last wave are making. I conducted 10 in-depth interviews with women aged from 25 to 40. All of them have moved from Moscow and St. Petersburg to such countries as Israel, Turkey, Armenia, Croatia, Cyprus, Ireland, Great Britain, Germany since September 2022. In Moscow, so these are only the first 10 names that pop up out of my head when I started to think about who immigrated this year, and for further investigation, of course, there could be more. In Moscow, the participants were engaged in daily creative activities or project work in different areas, working from home, cafes, and their own studios, so they didn't have to stick to the office dress code, and I think it is important to their wardrobe practices. My questions were about clothes women took with them in suitcases, the amount, the process of choosing, what they wear and don't wear now and why. I will mention quotes in my report and have to know that all names were changed. These interviews turned to be very therapeutical both for my respondents and I, because these conversations about clothes led to the reflection of more deep topic of identity. Moving from Russia in 2022 should not be seen as moving to a new country, but leaving the old one. However, the situation cannot be called forced displacement, and this is a voluntary immigration when the main reason to move is a sharp divergence of supreme personal values from the values of the country and a sense of threat to the safety of the family. In this case, the relocation turns from a conscious search for a place that suits one's values to a search for a place to wait out the storm, to a place to think about what to do next. Some participants in the study changed up to 6 countries during 8 months. All situations are divided into cases. Relocation to a more or less permanent place of residence because of working contracts for several visas or visa by origin, for example, there are 4 such cases. moving to a temporary country with a horizon of up to a year in order to continue looking for a suitable place for life. There were 6 cases like this. During the first conversation, it became clear that it is necessary to look at not just the set of clothes the participants were taking with them in their suitcases, but at the dynamics of changing relationships with their wardrobes. After all conversations, I can name the steps of this process. Building in mind the image of the country of relocation. Choosing clothes. The use of clothes just after the relocation. Adaptation to the climate and cultural specifics of the country. Changing the wardrobe by shipping something from Russia, shopping, donating, recycling, and remaking. Using the adopted wardrobe. The flicker of new self-image, and I can't call it an emergence because it's for now it's just the beginning of the process. Noticing the change that clothes girls are wearing now compared to what they wore back in Russia before the move. So all the girls during the conversations understood that now they were different. When it came to country image, the participants were thinking mostly about the climate. There was only one mention of country image in general. The quote. I have left the quote here because it seems to be known in Israel. Israel seems to have a different culture. This could be described by understanding that participants didn't move to the country with strict cultural circumstances. All participants had the opportunity to choose the country to move to and made their choices based on such factors as visa availability, the ability to collect documents, the ability to work, personal, cultural, and climate preferences. The first step, taking the suitcase, is an intellectual process that can be seen as similar to how we choose what to wear every day, but in case of relocation, we are trying to predict not just one day, but in a certain period of time and in conditions of anxiety. It took from 4 hours to 2 weeks to pack a suitcase. Some participants had more than a month to prepare for the trip, but the process of choosing clothes took no more than 2 weeks. And during the conversations, 2 weeks sounded like I had a lot of time to get ready, others had only a couple of hours. Even if there are only 4 hours to pack the suitcase, we have to make a choice of what to put in it. The decision depends on a variety of factors. The personal emotional states, this is the most important factors that I understood during the conversations. The suitcase size compared to the wardrobe size, the complexity of the upcoming trip, the uncertainty on the final destination, the differences in climate compared to Russia. But some of the respondents said that there was no any specific process of choosing what to take. Nina said, I had a lot to do in a very short period of time and thought about clothes at the last moment. So, what participants took with them? If there was no choosing process, the same wardrobe worn in Russia, the traveling wardrobe, what was usually taken on a long trip, for example, for 2 months. The random set of clothes. Anastasia said, I took 3 large suitcases and all my clothes because the company paid for the move. Marina, it was very spontaneous and pretty fast. For the trip, I took something that was on the front of the closet. If the choice was made, it was comfortable clothes, sweatshirts, sweatpants, t-shirts, jeans, hiking clothes, but no dresses. Some notable clothes as a memory of a place, for example, local designers' clothes or some clothes from relatives that were worn in Russia, for example, grandmother's dresses, clothing suitable for new climate conditions. Margaret said, I took comfortable, inconspicuous clothes and one vest by local designer, because things that remind you of a home you can buy only home. Marina, I also took clothes by Russian designers, lovable bags, something I saw by myself. There was a feeling that I was clinging to something that was slipping away and might not be useful. Among the packing factors mentioned above, there were some feelings complementing the process. Sense of shame, anxiety about losing themselves in a new place, Clothes was one of the markers of the whole life. They desired to be invisible during the trip until a new place of residence would be found. During this time, clothes should not be distracting and do not spoil to others. Those who moved to a temporary place of residence decided to take clothes for not more than 2 months, because the less clothes you have, the easier it is moved to the other from one place to another. Yerevan said, "Why should we think about clothes when we search for a new home?" I was feeling ashamed because of thinking about the beauty of nails during the crisis. Our relationships with clothing can be divided into two big phases: expectations and reality. Lucia Girona, talking about the effect the clothes has said, I might have expectations in regard to what is going to happen, but it is not until I physically put on the dress that I can sense whether it was the right or the wrong choice. What cannot be anticipated is the event formed by the body and the dress, and by my so-dressed body and the other bodies partaking in the event. After moving to a new country, one starts to wear the set of clothes they choose at home, and the clothes begin to express its agency in new conditions. Gray and inconspicuous, despite it was supposed to be comfortable, now it doesn't feel that way. In a new country, there are new objects, people with their bodies around. Therefore, even if clothing is familiar and lovable, all practices of dressed body turn to be new. The effective power of clothing depends not only on our desires and our knowledge about ourselves, but also on external conditions in which the meeting of the body and clothing takes place. So the respondents shared thoughts on how the packed set of clothes worked in the new country just after their moving. Some of them stopped wearing some clothes because of the climate. Some clothes didn't fit the usual environment and it was uncomfortable to wear it. There is no place to wear what one used to wear in Russia. It turned out that the clothes that was taken doesn't fully reflect the self-identity. The clothes that were taken are the ones it doesn't even like. Some clothes. Tatiana said about Cyprus. Things get wet from humidity and burn out of the sun. Anybody doesn't buy expensive clothes because it can be damaged. Anastasia. So far I don't want to draw attention and I don't go anywhere in particular where I could put on something special. After moving and realized that it was a mistake to take great clothes because I usually wear bright. I took quite uncomfortable clothes for myself. Now I realized that it was an internal process against the fact that I was leaving the country. But talking about what was specifics of the countries of relocation that the respondents got familiar after a while, they said the following. Compared to Russia, and regardless of the country, many respondents noted that people around dress freely and do not care about what others wear. Simple relationships, so-called simple relationships with clothes, were mentioned in the conversations about Cyprus, Thailand, Israel, Croatia. In London, the diversity of individual looks causes the difficulty to stand out. The diversity of different bodies around was mentioned by the girl who moved to Istanbul. A desire to dress more freely, to try on new things, bright and sexy, to mix pattern and beard. This has led some participants to start to buy new clothes and to think about it, or to ask relatives to send additional ones. In case of decision by not to buy the new clothes, this has led to remaking and searching for new combinations and styles, and to use husband wardrobe as a stash. Also, despite of difficulties with documents and the cases of visa cancellations, no one from my respondents has ever faced the situation of canceling Russians among ordinary people, so that inconspicuous uniform became useful. Here are a lot of quotes, but I will read just several. Anastasia said, "It's hard to stand out in London. The city is very multicultural. It doesn't matter how we look, no one is watching you. In Moscow, I wore quite a lot of black, grey, and pastel clothes. Here, I noticed that I wear more colorful clothes, pink rubber boots, ride blue sweater, and feel myself better. In Istanbul, it seems that people around love their bodies. Women wear miniskirts, leggings, and crop tops. Now I want to feel and look more sexy. I want to wear more bright clothes and begin to sew and applique on the vest. And here are some pictures describing the change made in appearance between the moments just after the relocation and several months later. Okay, some conclusions. The interviews show that people in Russia feel an obligation to fit the society expectations compared to the seeming effortless style in other countries. We have a perception based mostly on our own feeling that in Russia we need to dress normal in the eyes of the majority or communities we belong to. But we can't say that people in Moscow or St. Petersburg doesn't dress freely or individually. Yes, there are some boundaries, but looking briefly, there are a lot of people looking fashionable and different. And of course, people in other countries also think about what they wear. But these rules are not so much supposed to just relocate immigrants. So the attention to the diversity of appearance would also be the result of comparison with the participants feeling back in Russia and the desire to confirm their decision to move. The effective power of clothes, both simple and fashionable, taken from home, is changing in the new cultural and climatic conditions, so for now it is not enough to feel this open opportunity for self-expression. In a new country, the immigrant is going through the process of searching for a new identity, and he is ready for this change. Clothing, mix of old, new, and remade can help to do this. To conclude, our ongoing relationships with clothing depends not only on our desires, but also on an environment in which this relationship takes place. Sometimes expectations doesn't meet the reality. Even if dress code rules are not explicitly stated in the society, the climatic and social environment and our readiness to change can lead to a situation where even familiar and beloved clothes stop working and remain the symbol of the past. Thank you.